just a lack of time, a switch in priorities. Yes, child.
Good morning, I love you.
Good morning, I love you too. Hey yo, and welcome back to my channel where I talk about writer things, parent things, and writer-parent things. This week, I'm going to discuss the difference between typing up roleplay text versus typing up story narrative text. Before I get into that, if you like the channel, if you like what I do here, if it's a good time for you, maybe hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, ring-a-ding that bell, sign up to my newsletter at samanthailnasset.com to keep up with all things Sam. And please remember, folks, all the videos, all the advice, everything I give is based on my own personal research and experiences with it. Therefore, take what you can, leave what you can't. Role-playing is when you create a character or take on a role in order to pretend a storyline or scenario out. There's lots of different kinds of role-playing, such as tabletop, video games, live action, therapy, just a lot of different kinds. Today, I will be focusing on text-based role-playing, which is when the role player writes out the character's thoughts, actions, and feelings, working with other role players and the roleplay leader in order to play out a scenario or storyline. Before any motherfucking gatekeepers come at me and are all like, it's not the roleplay leader. I'm using leader here because Dungeon Master, Game Master, the roleplay lead, roleplay admin, there's a shit ton. I'm just going with leader for the moment. Now, while sometimes this can be an amazing experience and provide stories that we may in fact tell years and years later, the roleplay can also fizzle out in a day or two because people either just stop posting, lose interest, or take shit way too personally out of character. While I haven't roleplayed via forums in the past couple of years, I did roleplay through text via emails, chats, and forums for well over 15 years before then. And I saw a lot during my time there. I saw it evolve, I saw the changes and the trends and how things, went about, just like it does in all forms of entertainment. Throughout those same 15 years, I was also writing stories. Short stories, flash fictions, novels. I was working on a little bit of everything. So I am very experienced in both fields, and I wanted to discuss it from the perspective of both a role player and a writer so that I can clear up some misconceptions on both sides. The first misconception that I want to clear up is that role-playing and writing are absolutely nothing alike. I usually see this from the writer side of things, as writers who say this believe that there is more of a disconnect between writing and role-playing, that writers have complete and total control over the story, characters, and world building. Meanwhile, the primary ones in control of all of that on the role-playing side is the person hosting and directing the roleplay, to varying degrees, of course, because different dungeon masters do things differently. But role-playing is also very collaborative because without the players, there would be no game, and without the dungeon master, there may or may not be a storyline. Which are kind of fair points to me, but they do have some things in common. Both role-playing and writing require world building and character creation. Character voice is also very important in both mediums. And both writing and text role-playing require building a story with a beginning, middle, and an end. It's just the way they do it is different. Switching gears a bit, the next misconception I want to talk about is that, well, they're the same thing, right? I see this more from the role player side, where there's a lot of text-based role players who believe that they are an author through sheer merit of writing their roleplay posts because they have written so many, and they are so long. And I heavily disagree with this, because there is a giant difference between the amount of control and feeling that I have between writing my full narrative, where I am in complete and total control and making absolutely all of the decisions, and my roleplay post, where I don't know what's coming, I'm not sure how the other characters are going to react, and there's a different kind of thrill over there. And sometimes really don't know what the fuck is going on outside of my post. But that's part of the fun of role-playing. Not knowing what's gonna happen next. Not knowing if your post just, in fact, fucked something up or maybe fixed a deep rift. And you're not gonna know until the next post is popped up. Learning to roll with the punches is a great skill and a lot of fun. And yes, before the pantsers come at me in the comments or anything, even if you're a pantser, revisions can help fix anything that's kind of really off the wall and doesn't fit, or, you know, you still get to decide whether or not you want to keep this character's fuck up or fix this deep rift in the story. With role-playing, you can't really go back and fix that shit. The last misconception I want to talk about is that role-playing can't help improve your writing. Now, I have heard both sides of the argument that role-playing is a tremendous help to your writing, and that, in fact, it cannot help it at all. While I do agree that role-playing via text is not the best way to improve your narrative or story structure, because there are just some roleplays where you can, roleplay a slice of life for days on end, and I do not recommend putting that in a novel. There are other ways it can help, which I will go into more detail later. Now, I will die on this hill, this figurative hill right here, that writing out your text-based roleplay post does not improve writing narrative for a story. The best personal example I have of this is after I had been both writing and role-playing for over a decade. I was part of a role-play group. We role-played together for a couple of years in quite a few different forum role-plays. And one day I just sent them a bunch of short stories with our characters in different scenarios. Legitimately, one of my roleplay partners got upset with me because he said that my short story writing was so much better than my roleplay writing. He said that I was, in fact, holding back and not giving my best. And let me tell you, I was and I am a damn good role player, and my roleplay posts are awesome. But I had to explain that it is legitimately two different skill sets and two different mediums, which, again, more on that later. And of course, because it's me, I want to talk about some of the elitism that I experienced in the community, because every community and fandom that I have ever been part of has some form of elitism, and the text-based role-playing community is not exempt from this. One of the forms of elitism that I personally experienced was when it became about roleplay quantity over quality, where we would end up writing 10 paragraphs of essentially fluff, where you really could have deleted 9 of them and only needed like the one paragraph. For example, sometimes people would be writing conversations, and normally conversation would flow like, one thing is said, or one thing's responded to, then another thing is said. But instead, people would have something responded to, something else responded to, a third thing responded to, and then a new part, and then the conversation grew. But it was weirdly paradoxical, because it's like they shouldn't still be talking about the first and second thing, because the third and fourth thing are now being spoken about. But oh my gods, though, don't get me started on my feelings about decorating your roleplay post. You want to add in character picture, I'm down with that. We want to color code the characters. Yes, maybe even make dialogue bold. I like that too. But when you're designing intricate banners and side banners, and then images have to be broken into 3 or 4 parts to fit in your decorated and then your text is so small I can't actually read it without zooming in, which then breaks your images, and eventually I just copy paste into a document because I can't fucking read anything. Like, I got started anyway. Like, just why? Just, we're role-playing here. Just let me read the text easily. That is all I want. I should add a little disclaimer. This is probably only a problem on one website in specific, but I was on that website a long time, okay? With typical text-based role-playing, the role player only has control over their own characters' actions, words, and thoughts. To write or dictate another character's action, words, or thoughts is typically referred to as god-moding and against the rules. Which is reasonable because, for example, if I have a character who I have designed to act a certain way and somebody else writes that this character is doing something that I just feel is very not something that that character would do, I would get frustrated. So frustrated. However, this does present a problem when writing out my own character's post, because for example, if I want my character to invite somebody to join the party and I really want that other character to join the party, I can't just write that the other person joins the party. I need to write out my character's dialogue with their convincing argument and maybe give them a little puppy dog pout or something. I don't know. Depends on the character. But then I have to wait for the other person's post. And if the other person's character doesn't want to join the party or is being a butt about joining the party, then I have to potentially change my plans or figure out a new argument. For example, if I want someone to slap someone else in a roleplay post, I should end my post with "he swung his hand out intending to slap him." In narrative storytelling, this would actually kind of be a really bad way to write the sentence, when a more direct way, such as "his palm connected, slapping George across his precious face," has a little more punch to it, or slap to it. Now, if you've been in a group of role players for a while, or if you're just really good at out-of-character communication and, the other role player's cool with it, you can pre-plan certain things and fights and stuff so that, the paragraph can, in fact, end with whoever he is slapping George across his precious face, and then George's post would start out with being slapped, and that can, make things a little smoother. But that's not super common in my experience, unfortunately, because it's also kind of not ideal, especially if you want the role play to keep moving and people's work schedules don't coincide. And either way, I still have to sit there and wait for George's post so that I know how George reacted to being slapped in his precious face. Now, while roleplay posts can be very well written and they can draw role players and even friends of role players who are reading the post because I link them the roleplay, it's not the same as the way that a reader gets pulled into a novel, for example. And I'm not saying that one is better than the other. Don't get it twisted. I'm just saying they're different. At this point, I really hope that it doesn't come across this way, but if it seems like I'm trashing role-playing, please know that this is part of the fun of role-playing. The not knowing and the waiting, the putting up my post and then waiting for my roleplay partner to put their post, even if I know they're asleep, because people gotta sleep. But why do people gotta sleep? It's interactive, collaborative storytelling, and I love it so much. It's also not how I build my narrative skill, and it's not how I would recommend anyone build their narrative skill. But now I will tell you how can it help with writing fiction, because I do think that it can help, just not with the narrative. A lot of writers I know struggle with writing character voice and developing their characters. And I believe that role-playing is actually a really great way to develop and strengthen character voice, as well as learn to develop and create character story arcs. Because there are elements outside of a role player's control, a role player has to get into the character's mindset to figure out how a character is going to react to a situation. And if things in the situation don't go the way that the role player thought they were going to for the character, they have to figure out how the character is going to react and deal with the new situation. It's also, at least in my humble opinion, a really fun way to strengthen and keep my imagination sharp, and a great source of inspiration. I've written more than a few short stories and flash fictions based on or inspired by some of my old roleplay characters, such as my current short story, All That Glitters, about Eric, for those of you who have read it. All in all, bottom line, I do think role-playing, no matter what form, can be very helpful for the writing process. I just don't think text-based role-playing will help strengthen narrative writing. And yeah, I hope that this video helped make that clear why I believe that. And I hope this video helped anybody in some way, even if it entertained, and that was all the help that I could give, because I'm here to bring smiles and crush elitist. But alright everybody, that's all I got for you this week as I stab myself in the nose. Do you text-based roleplay? Do you write stories? Do you do both? Do you do neither? I'm very curious as to why you're here if you do neither. So if you would like to answer any of these questions, start a conversation, please leave a comment down below. If you like this video, like what I'm doing here, just kind of like my face, all good reasons to maybe subscribe to the channel, ring-a-ding that bell, and thumbs up the video. If you would like to keep up to date with all things Sam, you can sign up to my newsletter linked down below at samanthallnasset.com. I am still taking betas for I think 1 more week for All That Glitters. I host live streams on Mondays at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, and I post videos like this once a week. Remember folks, if you're curious about whether or not I can write, you can check out my website right here at samanthallnasset.com. You can also stalk my social media at Samantha L. Nasset. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, Facebook, TikTok now. With that, Sam is out. Hope to see you soon. Do, 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 do.